What do you mean, you people? Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to the Oye Cinema Club. I am your lovely host. We're going to be talking about Tropic Thunder, a movie that I picked. And the reason that I picked it is because this, to me, I always remembered it as a classic. And it's sometimes reviewing classics years later, you come and see things with fresh eyes, and maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe your same opinion just gets rebalanced again. Of like that's what you thought about it, and now you think even greater about that film. But before we get up into that, let's see our wonderful hosts here as well. We have El Profesor, we have El Dondino, and we have Jason Echo, and we are going to be reviewing Tropic Thunder. And let's start with our first impression, shall we? Let's start with Jason.
Hey, hey, hey. It's me, Jason. So this movie, I haven't seen it since probably in theaters. I would like to think maybe I might have watched it once it came on like DVD, but I haven't had a whole lot of experience with this movie. I think maybe I might have just saw it when it first came out, which I did enjoy when it first came out. Very, very much. I thought it was a very funny movie. Maybe the funniest movie of that year. You know, it definitely was the biggest comedy of that year. It's a big, expensive, loud comedy that was in theaters, which is rare when you think about all these giant Hollywood stars are in it. So yeah, it was kind of a big sort of glamorous project even when it came out. Um, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoy it now still for a lot of the same reasons I used to enjoy it for. Uh, all the comedic timing stuff, like these are really funny people in this movie. Like, Ben Stiller, the way he is able to assemble the right cast under the right script, it's a funny movie, man, and just his sensibility. I would love for another Ben Stiller movie kind of like this, to be honest with you, if he's got another one in him, just something goofy. Um, yeah, it's a funny movie. There are controversies in it that I can understand. Um, you know, might draw the wrong attention. But as I watched the movie, I was thinking, like, let's see if this thing is offensive to me or not. It wasn't totally offensive to me. It wasn't totally offensive to me. Um, because Robert Downey Jr. sort of does it with like such care, and this is like the most absurd version of this world of Hollywood, right? So anyways, long story short, I was still pleasantly surprised with how much I liked this movie and how much I liked all the people in it. And the work that Tom Cruise does and Matthew McConaughey and even the director, the British dude. Like there's so many comedians in this movie, man, just making this thing work. Danny McBride, like all the people that I find like crazy funny are in this thing. So I like the movie. I think it still stands up and holds up in a lot of ways. It's very, very glossy. It's very there's a lot of money in this thing being thrown around, but it's a good movie.
Thank you, Jason. Let's go with El Profesor.
Yes, so this is the first time I've ever seen it. I've known this movie forever. I don't know why I never saw it. I always wanted to see it. It's not a movie that I remember ever seeing on like TBS, TNT, like on TV. And I think that's part of it too. A lot of times I'll see something and be like, I got to go watch that. And I don't watch it on TBS or TNT because I hate commercials. But I don't remember seeing it like that. The one thing that always kills me is every time I watch a Ben Stiller directed movie and then you watch interviews with people that were in the movie, they always talk about how he's like a total nut on the set and he's like super duper serious. So as soon as I finished this movie, because it was so playful, I was like, I gotta read some interviews. So I couldn't find like a physical interview, but I read like an Entertainment Weekly interview, and they did talk about that, and like how jacked he is in the movie. Robert Downey Jr. said there were so many comedic giants in this movie, or so many acting giants. They're not just comedians. You got Tom Cruise, you got Matthew McConaughey, you got Nick Nolte, who all have some comedic experience, but for real, they're not normally seen that way. And for me, I think. I'm sorry, what Robert Downey Jr. said was that he felt like Ben Stiller got jacked in the movie because he needed to be that way around the set, and that he's super serious throughout that. There is a lot of controversy surrounding it. It's a satire, because I feel like there's more than just the Robert Downey Jr. character that's a little out there, but clearly that's the most in-your-face controversial thing. But I feel like there's a lot in this movie because they were really picking on people they worked with. They were kind of making fun of people in Hollywood, in my mind. That's how I saw this movie, as a complete satire, and that's what they were really going for.
Thank you so much, Professor. Let's go with myself. So, I'm kidding. Let's go with it now.
I was like, I thought you did your first impression already. Anyway, I saw this movie in the theaters when it came out. I loved it. I just thought it was super smart. Just to piggyback on El Profesor, like satire to like its fullest, like method acting. The whole idea. I think there's been that transition because it's they talk about I am Sam and all these other things, and like even the R word right now is really frowned upon and shouldn't be said. But they made a point again. The satire. They're putting this magnifying glass on, or mirror, if you will, on Hollywood, because it's just pretty ridiculous when you hear certain people and what they do and method acting. And this is even before Jared Leto and his shenanigans. And you could just kind of see, and it almost feels that now, like for Oscars, especially the past couple of years, people have transitioned into saying like, if you want to win an Oscar, you got to put yourself in a fat suit or slather yourself with prosthetics, right? So clearly, there's this evolution in Hollywood, or things just kind of change and shift through time, and that right there, and like the rap and hip hop, they didn't get into it as much, but they're clearly also satirizing that whole genre and world, right? And the comedy and the Nutty Professor type films, and yeah, I thought it was great because then they had grounded moment, right? They had the one, the rapper, the one black guy in the actual movie confronting Robert Downey Jr., and then you have the young actor that's like ends up kind of confronting everyone and trying to like bring that out. And so yeah, I saw it as satire. I thought it was hilarious when I saw it in the theaters. I had forgot a lot about it. I mean, the little kid being thrown out. I remember laughing so hard at that moment. And I mean, the whole TiVo thing. It's like kids these days have no idea what TiVo is. But that to me is just so freaking funny. And I imagine it's so like someone must have bitched and moaned back in the day that in their writer they had TiVo and it wasn't there, and so someone decided to put that in the script. And yeah, and then I just saw in the news someone was talking about G5. That's still a thing. There's still G5 jets around. Oh yeah, Clarence Thomas flying around in G5 jets. That's what it was. Clarence Thomas, our Supreme Court justice, is going around in to fancy vacations in a G5 jet. So,
Man, TiVo was great, wasn't it? TiVo was the best. TiVo changed everything.
So, yeah, man, like this movie, I have a confession to make, guys. So, because we delayed this review a week, I've actually watched this movie 3 times now in a row. I
by yourself every time?
Yeah, myself the whole time. And
Regular speed.
regular speed. And one thing I have to say about these movies, specifically, I guess Ben Stiller and that kind of old school, I guess 2000s and late 90s type of comedy, is that there are so many, and even the 80s. There's movies like Airplane and stuff like that that have like there's so many hidden jokes and like punchlines that I bet you a lot got caught off out of this movie that would have been amazing to explore even more. And specifically, there were things that literally were on screen a second. And if you didn't see the movie again, like you wouldn't have picked that up. Like I remember like a little thing that I picked up was when we first see Matthew McConaughey, the agent, and he has like a magazine and Ben Stiller is in it, like with baby pandas. And it's
Yeah.
like a very quick scene. And I remember the first time seeing it, I don't remember seeing that part. But then when I saw it again, I saw that part and I was like, oh, it makes even more sense. That part that he's like, oh, I killed what I loved the most, you know?
Hooker.
And he automatically assumes it's a prostitute, and it's like, get off the phone,
Amanda, it's probably not even her
Amanda,
real name.
that's not even her real name. I've gone away
Uh,
with another agent.
yeah. Go on. You had more to add of
No,
seeing
so
with
to that, it's just like what were like little moments or quick scenes that you noticed that maybe someone wouldn't have noticed
Hmm.
watching the movie.
Of just really quick, because you were talking about in his office, and there's that magazine. There's also a giant cutout of Simple Jack, and it's one of the motorized ones. That again, because they're starting to talk about Simple Jack, and you're like, what is this? This is ridiculous. And maybe they had shown like one clip of it, and you're like, all right, he must think, and McConaughey must think that it's like this horrible thing they did. And no, he's got a giant friggin' Simple Jack, and you just see it like him jumping up in the air. Um, and that, I mean, it's not something you might miss, but it's just those, like, that's going above and beyond. Like, who says, like, yeah, let's make this giant animatronic movie style poster? And how much fun did whoever had to come build that? Like, I can just imagine, like, having a blast, having to, like, all right, let's do this cutout, and we gotta, yeah. So that was one of the things I noticed. Um, I don't know if someone else noticed
Yeah, I mean,
anything
even
else.
the part where Jack Black's like, "Give me your clothes" to like that one person, and he doesn't fit in the clothes, but like they walks in the room and they show the other person that he took the clothes from like behind a shelf or something for like half a second. That was it, and it was like usually they would do that and then show the person being like covering themselves or something. There was a lot of things like that that they didn't really get into that were really small. It's funny you brought that up. I did think about that during the movie.
I just like the fact that he's bit off a bat, and it's like COVID, COVID. Jack Black started COVID
Did
with
you did you guys
heroin.
notice no one really died in the movie other than the director and that bat? Oh, I guess the panda. Like people weren't dying throughout the movie very often. They
No,
didn't show many deaths. There were some explosions and things, but there wasn't like a whole lot of individual deaths of
I mean,
characters.
Not counting like in their movie the deaths, right?
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, I mean, this is pre John Wick, so
yeah. Also, I mean, for the comedy rating, it's like have to do it. I mean, I'm surprised they had his head and like poking it, and, like
I thought that was
so.
great. I thought that was
Me
a great
too.
Yeah,
bit.
The fact that his jaw was independently moving while he was shaking it was like my favorite part. I was like, they must
I
have loved that head.
I like that very much.
I would want that head if I was in the movie. I'd be like, I'll do the movie, but I want that head after.
and
and you have you.
did
Oh,
you
go.
guys' version of the movie started with trailers, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I absolutely love that Tobey Maguire and Robert Downey
Where he's a
Jr.
monk.
Yeah,
Yep.
the devil's
Devil's
Ali,
The
Alley
Devil
or
Within or
something.
something.
no, the devil's alley.
The
Yeah, the
Devil's
devil's
Alley.
alley.
and they were like MTV Best Kids Award winner. Tobey
God, that was funny because it was like that's true. That
Yeah,
was
Tobey
really the
Maguire won for that
Lord.
Spider-Man kiss. Remember upside down
Yeah, it
Spider-Man
was.
kiss?
Yeah,
I love that Toby was that good of a sport to be
yeah.
because that was like I mean obviously he's a respected actor, but the fact that it's like yeah Academy Award winner, MTV Movie Award, kiss like come on.
And then at the end, he's getting nominated for that role. Like if you see the other,
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
at the end of the movie. And dude, Tom
Well,
Hanks in the wheelchair.
oh
huh?
yeah,
Tom Hanks was getting nominated for a movie where he was in a wheelchair, like
Um,
basketball player or something. Like the things were ridiculous.
yeah. Well, I mean, people were really good sport. Like you have Lance also there.
Yep.
Uh, I mean Nance. I said
And John,
Nance.
John Voight
Um,
too,
yeah.
because that's making fun
Yeah.
of when he lost the Oscar. He remember he was in Midnight Cowboy, and I forget who won that year, but he was really pissed off afterwards. I forget who
Did
beat him.
Dustin Hoffman win it? That for
No, it
for
wasn't the same movie. It was a different movie. I can't think of what it was, but John Voight didn't win for Midnight Cowboy because somebody else had a big one. I forget who it was. I'll have to look it up.
Hmm.
Did you guys notice at the beginning? I watched it on Amazon Prime. So did anybody else? I actually bought it or rented it rather. It cost me like
I
$4.
ended up renting it. I didn't want to. Where did I watch it? Yeah, I just watched it off my iPad. So I was like, I'm just gonna rent it.
So if you rented it at the beginning of every Amazon movie, at the top it will say like the rating of the movie, and then it will list the reasons it's rated that way. You know what I'm talking about?
Hmm. Yeah.
And on this movie, it literally said rated R, and it said like language, violence, and it said blackface. It literally wrote
Yeah.
that as one of
Oh,
the
wow.
things. Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
I ended up renting the unrated version, which I think is just 10 minutes longer, maybe. But I'm not entirely sure what was actually added for that. But it still also
It was
says,
just
you
16
know,
minutes of Tom Cruise dancing.
yeah, it could be. It does say like blackface, and that whole thing is supposed to be somewhat based on how when there was a little bit of a dip in like Mission Impossible movies, between the second and third one, I think, or which is
Yes,
weird to think of
Charles.
now that it was like, oh boy, Tom Cruise ain't gonna make as much money for us. But it was like I don't know because he's making fun, I think, of Harvey Weinstein, which is also because Harvey Weinstein supposedly punched someone also. But they had said about him that he would be worth more money if he was dead, if Tom Cruise was dead, because people would buy up his shit or whatever. Same thing, kind of like when Michael Jackson or musicians normally when they pass away, everyone starts buying up the records. So it's like worth more money dead than alive at that point. Um, so there's a lot of Bill Hader's in it. Um, the
Yeah.
grip, just like you put, yeah.
I remember
Go.
the first time I was watching it, very, very, very first time, a long time ago. I did not know that was Tom Cruise.
Oh, really?
Wow.
He had fake hands. His hands were
Yeah.
gigantic compared to they were super hairy, but they were also way too big. I don't know if he did that on he must have used like prosthetic hands to make his hands too big. They were
They
bigger.
did.
They're not Tom Cruise's hands. There's no way.
And I think back in that day, he actually did that character like live somewhere, like at an MTV Movie Award or something.
Oh, they might have brought that up.
Saturday Night Live. or
Yeah, he
something.
might have done it again.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right.
And
So-
that a lot of that was his idea. I might have heard Ben Stiller or someone else talking about it, but I guess Tom Cruise was really game, and he was like, "I want hairy arms and balding and all that, and the dancing." Yeah.
Since we're going deep into characters, who was your favorite character?
Huh. My favorite character. It's hard, man, because watching it a second time, I started noticing some of the smaller performances that I didn't really notice the first time. Like the kid who was like kind of gung hungry to be like his first movie or whatever. What's that actor's name?
I don't know. The only one that went to boot camp and
Yeah,
actually
the only
read
one
the
who went to
script.
boot camp.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really pay him that much attention the first go around with this movie, but like now I've seen him on TV shows and stuff since, and like I'm more familiar with him as an actor, so I kind of like his face stuck out a little bit more to me. You know, this thing is like littered with like people who are actually just genuinely funny.
Which character are you guys talking about in the movie?
I forget the
The
character's name, but he was the kid.
he was the only non-famous actor in the movie.
Jay
So you had
Baruchel
Jack.
or whatever?
What?
Are you talking about Jay Baruchel, the guy that played?
Yeah,
Okay. Yes, his voice sounds like Christian Slater to me the whole time. Every time he's
Oh
talking,
wow.
he's not on screen. I think of Christian Slater.
Huh.
that's
Is he
interesting.
from Freaks and Geeks? Is he one of those guys?
Yeah, he's one
No.
of those.
Oh, he
I
is?
definitely know him from something.
Yeah, he was on Freaks and Geeks.
Oh, so he's the one that like basically takes the lead at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
so
thought he did a great job.
he was
It's hard
in
to
This
stay
Is
with
the
those
End.
guys.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, he really connects everything at the end, right? And has to like give everyone a pep talk because they're all fucked up, you know.
Everyone. Yeah.
I don't know if I have a
I'm not gonna
favorite.
lie. After watching it 3 times in a row, I still didn't get what he was saying. You know, when he was like in the road, walking, talking to Robert Downey Jr.
Oh,
he
and
was
Robert Downey Jr. was like, "Who are you talking to?"
yeah,
Mhm.
they was talking about porn and video games, and
Oh yeah,
He was
no,
talking about like
the
DVD and HD.
yeah,
And
yeah, between Blu-ray and HD DVD. And so he's like, it all came down to what video games and the porn industry choose. Because
yeah,
back in the day, it was between VHS and Betamax, and it's supposed to be the porn industry ended up sticking to VHS, and so that's why Betamax kind of one of the reasons why it disappeared. And so between like Blu-ray and HD DVD, PlayStation 3 came out with Blu-ray, and I guess the porn industry also did Blu-ray instead of HD DVD. So that's what it was. Um, I don't know if I have a favorite character because there's scenes that I really like, but just the breakdown, probably my favorite moment, or I don't know if favorite moment, but like grounded, is the Apocalypse Now kind of finish with Ben Stiller taking out the makeup, and it's from Apocalypse Now, kind of the horror. And Robert Downey Jr. goes in, and then he's like, "You don't even know who you are," or whatever that interaction is. Like, I'm the guy playing the guy who's
you're a
playing,
dude playing a dude who's a dude doesn't know who you
and
are.
then like taking the eyes and the yeah. And to me, just that interaction is kills me every time because it's just like I remember knowing people in college that were that or were trying to be that. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
And
for me, it's the little squat or whatever, dude. That scene at the end where you think like Ben Stiller's just leaving with the little kid, and then he's stabbing him in the back. I was dying. That was my favorite
and
scene in the movie. That little kid. That was the interaction with Ben Stiller was awesome.
well, and that's the whole thing about like not dying. Like he just chucks the kid, so they have to show the kid like sit out like on the bank of the stream, just like really sad, just like see
Pissed
he's
off.
okay, no one got killed.
That GI Joe parachute, so that everyone lives. When their
Yeah.
plane gets exploded.
for me, it's a tie, and it's the multiple times watching it. So number one to me, I mean, it's just such a strong performance. Back in the day, I would say Tom Cruise. Just because knowing he's Tom Cruise and playing that type of character and stuff like that, it's like, oh, it's so unconventional. But now, I would say Robert Downey Jr. He he killed. It was such a strong performance that it's just so great.
He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
He killed it. He
Yeah.
killed it. He killed it. And that little kid, because that that little kid not only got me with that one stabbing, but when he was in the corner like doing Tai Chi as well. I was like, oh my god, this is a scene stealer right here.
And the older kid too, right? The older kid did a nice job of being the leader of the camp. Like I thought that kid did a really good job. Easily could become super campy.
With the chest tattoo.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "You said rice patties, and now you're saying poppy field. Which one is it?"
American.
Honorary mention: Matthew McConaughey and Jack Black.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson was supposed to play the Matthew McConaughey part, but it was one of his suicide attempts happened, and he filled in on it. Yeah, I read that.
Right
and
around the time.
I feel like a lot of the people were not the people that they were originally supposed to be. Like even Jack Black was supposed to be. He wrote it for Jack Black, but then they didn't think they could get him, so then it was going to be the guy from Deadwood. Did you guys watch Deadwood?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan Doherty with the long hair, the Swearingen's like little buddy. He was going to play that character. It would not have worked the same, I don't feel like. Jack Black killed it.
Yeah, Jack Black was great.
Oh, what was the name? What was the name of the explosive guy?
Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. I wonder, because this is like early career Danny McBride, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder.
It's right before he blew up.
Yeah. So I wonder if he like improvises a lot in his scenes, and that's why he got like a lot of leeway. Because I doubt they write all this stuff for him, especially like early for his career.
I don't know.
Well, that's apparently like Robert Downey Jr. made a lot of his dialogue up, and that's why people were so impressed.
Yo, I can't stop. Every time I hear the whole crawfish, like
saucier shit.
We're supposed to be a unit. Suck my unit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because the guy confronts him and was like, "What I don't understand is why you're still doing, they're not being filmed anymore." It's like, why are you still doing the accent or whatever? It's like, I don't know.
No, he said in the beginning that he doesn't drop character until the DVD commentary.
Which is a reference to Wesley Snipes, if I'm not mistaken. Wesley Snipes, for Blade, the DVD extras, the interviews, like, he's doing them as Blade in character. I think it's wild. Yeah, I don't know if it's for Blade 1 or 2, but someone at some point talked about it, and then I had to go and look it up. And like in the DVD extras, they're like, clearly they were interviewing him on set or whatever, and he's still like in the outfit, and he's answering as if he were Blade.
The early days of DVD extras, they were just, those were a whole thing all to themselves.
You had to click on them. Remember, you would like click down, and it would be like.
There were some really good ones. There were movies that did a really good DVD presentation.
Sometimes it was longer than the movie.
Yeah,
all the presentational stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff on the side.
Yeah, for sure.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It was a 2 DVD set. That one had ridiculous amount of extras and so funny.
I love
because there was also so many deleted scenes, and
So I imagine this movie had a lot of extras. Is that what? Did somebody say that?
Well, you guys were talking about the
that he kept character, like he stayed method acting for the DVD commentary.
But I guess like breaking. I wonder how fleshed out the script was. I guess since I forget who of you brought that up about Danny McBride. I love the line also when they talk about him having hands, and then like They're just constantly bringing up that he's a liar. Like he's got you got hands or your hands screw back. Whatever that Jack Black.
When it happened, it was always an intense scene when someone noticed too. It was like things were
Yeah.
blowing up, and they're like, "You have hands."
And even the beginning when they were like describing how the movie got made,
Yeah.
that was hilarious.
Yeah. 4 people survived, and one, or it was like X amount of
2
people
people wrote a book, only one
survived.
wrote.
Yeah. It's wild.
Do you
Jason,
think
did
this
you
movie
say-
could be made today? Probably not at all, right?
I don't think so.
Me neither. Not at all.
So
I think
Just-
for a lot of reasons,
Well,
not
studios
just the
would
obvious,
probably not back
not
this
just the
movie.
obvious ones.
Yeah.
you know what I think though, that it's getting more backlash is the whole Simple Jack stuff, and I think that's if I'm not mistaken, looking up at things or what people are talking about, it's more the portrayal of like Simple Jack and how they're drop and not as much with the blackface, which you would think would be the more over the top or more like, hey, let's talk about why this shouldn't be a thing. But
I mean, but
I
also
see this.
the
Yeah.
character of Ben Stiller in the movie is like a really dumb actor.
He's like Zoolander. It's basically Zoolander.
Yeah.
It's Zoolander meets Rambo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because
if Zoolander instead of going as a
This is
I also think he's Tom Cruise a little bit.
a little bit.
It was supposed to be Keanu. Keanu was the original, supposed to be the Ben Stiller character. I forgot.
Oh,
That's the
wow.
one I forgot about. Keanu was supposed to be the Ben Stiller character.
that would
No,
have
no,
been
Ben
whole different
Stiller
movie.
changes everything about this movie.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
'Cause I
would love
see
to have seen. I would love to see like if there was like what do they call it, a screen test or whatever of Keanu, just because like is he doing like Bill and Ted? Like where is he? Like what is his? How is he doing it? Because
So
I
going
put this
back,
movie.
real quick, going
Yeah.
back to the whole backlash thing. What
Yeah.
where I think this movie saves itself is that everything is justifiable. Like they have specific scenes where they address those things. Because I think if they wouldn't have had those scenes, then this movie would have been looked at like
Right.
way worse. But even that scene that like apart from like I'm playing a dude playing another dude, but like the scene of the whole going full retard that like Robert Downey Jr. is talking to Ben Stiller's character about like and he's making the explanation of like, hey, I am Sam, this Forrest Gump, like all these movies. Like I think that part personally saves it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and them calling out Robert Downey Jr. almost every other scene, of like the whole "you people, what do you mean?" Like all the every time he gets out of line with his like craziness, there's someone that kind of puts in that check or responds the correct way, right? In like you're fucked up or like what the fuck are you doing? Like everyone, no one's cool really with the fact that he's doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like you can tell that.
And there's not a more blatant scene to like explain that like close to the very end when like literally the person that takes the leadership is the guy that was the shyest of them all at the beginning, but then he realized I'm here with a bunch of crazy freaking people, and I have to take lead of the charge.
It's again a beautiful. Yeah, there's so many MTV Movie Awards things. They have Access Hollywood doing that thing at the beginning when it shows him doing like surgery, and they even mention there that it's like a very controversial. So again, this is satire, and it's making a point of Hollywood and the practices that it's done since the beginning of Hollywood, basically, and was still doing then, and still did it throughout till today, even, right? That's the whole point of like Asian characters that are, like just whitewashing everything. I watching it again. I think this movie could be up. Not not saying that it's equal in like the funniness or how great it is, but it falls in that area of like Blazing Saddles, right? And just like the using of certain words and showing certain people in certain ways and all that, and it's like it's satire and it's working on a thing, and it's weird when people can't differentiate from being like someone being really racist and someone trying to put racism and or sexism, misogynism, like any of those under a magnifying glass and pointing out like kind of like, hey, this shit right here, this has been happening, it's still happening, we should stop this type of thing. Because that yeah, they were and again, the trailers at the beginning, if you're in the movie theaters, you're kind of like, is this a real movie? And they did it.
At first, I didn't know what was. I was going to skip that part. I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "I don't even know what this is," and I was like, "Going to skip through it," because it kept going to like the green screen, and then it would have like Cinemark or not Cinemark, but DreamWorks or something, and I was like, "Huh?" But then I realized what was going on.
It's a peculiar way to start a movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're watching it in
funny.
a movie theater, it would be even trippier because
Yeah.
you're watching actual trailers and then you're watching these trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely smart.
And it's probably not until what is it? They do the Scorcher 2, Scorcher, until that point, right? That it maybe clicks in, because it's the monks, or the whatever the
No, I think it starts with Booty Sweat.
yeah, Booty Sweat.
No, it starts with Booty Sweat. That's how the movie starts.
Yeah.
And it's Booty Sweats and then something nuts, right?
Bust a Nut.
Huh?
Bust a Nut.
Is it Bust a Nut? Was it Booty Sweat and Bust a Nut? I thought it was Booty Sweat, the drink, and then he had a energy bar or something that also had
it's called Bust a
weird Bust a Nut. Yeah. No, I think the movie, it's one of those like, it's a very smart movie. And I was gonna say Ben Stiller has had this super all over the place career of writer, director, and performer, because like he's just been working on Severance, right? And that's super trippy. It has some funny moments, but it's like super dark. And then you have something like The Cable Guy, right? That when I saw it, I was way too young to see it, but it was like Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick, and it was like, but I had no real connection or knowledge of Ben Stiller, really. Like if I saw him, I would have recognized him from some of the stuff I had seen at that point, but not to the extent that it's like, oh, Ben Stiller is writing and directing movies as well. So it's really, and then you have Zoolander and Dodgeball and all those other,
like Meet the Parents.
Yeah.
It
Happy Gilmore.
It almost makes me sad that I feel like that era is like not gonna come back ever again.
Yeah.
Well, some of it is okay that it doesn't come back. Let's be.
But it's like studios are not really giving that type of budget to comedy films like that anymore, unless I say Rogen film, because they have their own money.
Right. Well, they're producing their own things now. Well, how much money did this cost to make?
I think like 82 million or 92 million. It was the highest at the time. It was the highest budgeted movie for a comedy that was rated R.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, like 92 million, right? That's a lot of money for a comedy.
Yeah.
Just thinking, like I said,
a super controversial comedy at that.
But it made its money. I believe it grossed 195 million.
Okay.
So it was a big payoff.
Well, maybe they'll come out with a streaming show of you know, a sequel to this.
So they actually talk about it in that interview I was telling you about, and they were like, "Yeah, this one they'll never make any." They're like, "We can't do it. There's nothing we could." There, Jack Black made a joke, called it like Arctic lightning instead of Tropic Thunder, and he was like, "That's the only thing we could do. We end up in like Antarctica, and like the But yeah, he's like, "We'll never make one." Recently, Ben Stiller, somebody must have written on Twitter or something to Ben Stiller like, "I wish you never apologized for this movie." And he's like, "I don't know who told you I did. I never did. I never apologized for what I did in this movie. I stand behind what I did. I made a satire. I did not try and hurt." But I mean, yeah, man, I can understand people getting offended by this movie in multiple ways. Like, I would never judge anybody for being offended by this movie. There's a lot of stuff.
But that's the thing, right? There's, again, out of context. That's such
Sure.
a huge thing, especially in today's day and age of just media or whatever. And it was like, unless it was in a magazine or Access Hollywood or some shit like that on TV that they showed a clip or whatever, then you would be like, "Oh, what's this? How can I be angry about this? I guess I need to go watch the movie, or I need to write or try to get something, a letter chain to try and do something about it." But nowadays, all you have to see is one clip, or you just see, and it's like, "Oh, it's Robert Downey Jr. in blackface." So clearly, this is,
And I believe also he just wrapped Iron Man.
Yeah, I don't know if it had come out yet. But either it had, yeah, I can't remember which came out
Yeah,
first.
he
But
wrapped Iron Man and he filmed this.
These came out in the same Iron Man, and this came out in the same year, didn't it?
That's crazy.
I think so.
That's got to be crazy for
he finished filming.
studios.
He literally finished Iron Man and then filmed this.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they both came out in 2008. But
Because
again,
That's a
he
huge year for Robert Downey Jr.
It's
That's
a
a
huge
monster year.
risk. It's a huge risk for the Iron Man franchise too. If people rejected him after this,
it wasn't a franchise. It wasn't a. That's what we also forget, right?
it was
It
probably
wasn't a
gonna be built that way,
franchise.
I would think.
It was.
yeah, Iron Man was like the start of the MCU.
No, you see, that's where it's also bullshit. It was Blade, right? Blade gets pushed aside, but Blade came before.
No. But I'm talking about them really going like, "Yo, we're going."
I know, but Blade was super successful, especially the first one. Maybe
Yeah,
even
but
the
they
first
didn't
two.
have. There's still like all the like. I think what made everything happen was the fact that like they slowly acquired like all these brands under one roof.
Right. Yeah. But also, so this is the other thing. Robert Downey Jr. wasn't huge yet, like, because he was just coming off of rehab and have been arrested and all that. So like Iron Man, and I guess this year is where he kind of like blew up again and kind of finally, like was stable. Because for the longest time, he was getting super weird contracts once he finally, because every time he started doing a movie, he'd like relapse and then they couldn't do the movie. So it was almost insurable. So they would give him a ridiculous percentage of the money up front. And it wasn't until fully finishing shooting and all that that then they would pay him the rest. So I don't know if with Iron Man and maybe this movie, like, he was still doing that kind of contract. It's
I mean, he's such a risk as an actor. Like, before this, you're gonna put him in Iron Man. Like, that is kind of crazy that I mean, this movie is more a one-off. It's a Ben Stiller movie. He's making a movie where he's making a people he likes. But Iron Man, to give somebody who had just recently been through that's crazy. I get the percentages are there, but that doesn't mean he's not going to relapse. That I never really thought about that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And to make a movie like this at the same time, that just seems like a big time risk for a studio. That this came right after Iron Man is kind of interesting.
No, and as soon as Iron Man hit, that just became Robert Downey Jr. season.
Let me tell you, I think Robert Downey Jr. might be like the last of the movie stars. Like maybe him and maybe Johnny Depp or something like that. But I think they're the last of them. because like when I remember I was in Toronto, I was at Toronto Film Festival, and Robert Downey Jr. was at some party or whatever, and people were running across the street trying to get like a look at Downey Jr. from out of the party, and I'm like, what? You're running to see
Well,
another like human being like in droves? I'm like, oh, that's a star. That's a star.
Bro, I remember.
uh,
Just a quick side story.
yeah.
I remember my first week and a half in Hollywood. Like I was living in Hollywood Boulevard. I was walking down the street, going to Taco Bell down in Vine, and walking up, I saw Robert Downey Jr. and his wife like walking up. Like it was like normal people, just like walking up in the on the street. And I was like, holy shit, that's Robert Downey Jr. And then I said, holy shit, I'm the exact same height as Robert Downey Jr.
Does that
I was
include
like,
the hair or no? Or you're taller because of the hair?
I didn't have hair back in the day. I didn't have hair. I was completely like bald, like clean, like
So
military shape.
yeah, so yeah, 2008, he's got Tropic Thunder and Iron Man, and then '09, he's got Sherlock Holmes, which is also a huge hit.
Yeah.
And I will say, so like movie being made, he did The Soloist with Jamie Foxx in '09, and then Jamie Foxx has his movie. I think it's fully filmed, but it's in the can, and this can maybe go into. I don't know much about it, but I think it's also satire, and it's huge, huge stars in it. And Jamie Foxx talked about it, like he called Robert Downey Jr. was like, "Hey man, I want you to be in this movie," and he's like, "Yeah, send me the script." And the character Robert Downey Jr. was gonna play is Mexican, and Robert Downey Jr. like I guess called him up and was like, "Hey man, I don't think I could do Mexican. Like it's it can come off as racist or something like that." And Jamie Foxx was like, "You did blackface, man. Like you get like you did blackface. Do not tell me you cannot play a Mexican in also what's gonna be a satire or whatever." So I guess he was like, okay. But the movie's never made it out, and at this point, it probably won't, just because Jamie
He,
Foxx.
He filmed it as a Mexican.
Yeah, supposedly the Robert Downey Jr. played Mexican, and but I forget who all else is in that movie that are also playing like uh different roles that maybe they shouldn't be cast in or racial tones and stuff
well,
like that. But
he's Australian in this, right? For like
yeah,
supposed to be, and he was Australian in that other movie in Zoolander, wasn't he? Didn't he have like a small bit part and he was Australian? I can't remember what movie it was. There's another movie where he does it and he's Australian. Um, I got to be honest. Once they took off everything, I think he was less recognizable as Robert Downey Jr. than he was when he was in the other costume. Like when he had the eyes and the hair, he was less recognizable as Robert Downey Jr. to me.
the blonde hair is so weird, man.
Yeah, and he had the contact lenses in.
Yeah, those crazy contacts.
Yeah. I think that they were trying to, like we were saying before about the what was the name of the movie? What was it called?
Simple Jack.
Simple Jack. I think they were in the movie trying to show that it was satire. Like even when it came to the blackface, it was because Robert Downey Jr. was a method actor and he wasn't wearing black. He took medicine, or he took a pigmentation.
Yeah, there was a surgery to it as well.
Now in real life, Robert Downey Jr. was clearly putting on. He didn't do that.
Yeah.
But that's the point. It's like I think that they were trying to say like we're making a like they were trying to do as much as they could. I know that beforehand they actually let people from the NAACP and people with disabilities come in and screen it, and the reaction from the people with disabilities was way worse. Apparently, they were very offended and they boycotted and like went out with signs and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I mean, and maybe they're again, and it's right around that. I mean, Black Eyed Peas had that famous song. that had to change to "Let's get it started," and yeah,
Yep.
because it was. So I mean, that was that period of transition at that point as well, right? Of certain things and shining a light, on that kind of
Wait,
group
what happened with
that
the Black Eyed Peas?
they had a
The
song called that was
started,
"Let's Get Retarded" in here, and
And
they
they
ended up
changed it
having to, yeah,
they
to
changed
"Let's get it started."
like every lyric had retarded in it, and so they like,
so
yeah, the
that's
whole chorus
saying
was
that was
just
the
that,
time that things were slightly changing, like they were becoming more
yeah,
PC, more aware.
especially with people with disabilities, right? That was, I guess, a big thing that for so long, that clearly that was still a joke, and so I feel that's the time where it started to change ever so slightly.
If they believe that people were not in the public were not going to, for the most part, be offended, I think that they were probably more concerned that they were going to offend the Hollywood people that they were satirizing the whole entire time. Like making fun of Sean Penn. I mean, Tom Cruise was in Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman, and they were saying like that people do these performances just to get Oscars. Like, so that is kind of
Yeah.
like, that is interesting that some of these guys have been in movies with some of the people that they're satirizing, or worked for them.
Was the movie Natural Born Killers? Wasn't Robert Downey
Oh
Jr.?
yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, he had an Australian accent in that movie.
Mm,
That's what
that's
it was.
right.
Good call.
Wow.
It wasn't Zoolander. That's a good movie too. Crazy movie.
Christian Bale always puts an American accent, so
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Give our roles back to real Americans, says the Paraguayan
well,
American.
before we head into final thoughts, is there anything else you guys want to address about the movie?
Where the women at? Right. I'm sure if they redid this movie, it'd be all women in those characters, in those roles. Oh,
Oh my God, there's no prominent like Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like there's no prominent women in this movie at all.
didn't they
Well,
show someone in
Yeah,
the trailer?
she's actually at the end.
Right.
here's the
Yeah.
thing about this movie too, though. It's also making fun of like Hollywood's war movies and all like the stories that come along with those as well. All the movies like Apocalypse Now that
Platoon.
That
has like
shit
a book
fucking.
written about it and has like a play written about the background of the movie. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
Apocalypse
Yeah.
Now is like one of the most story movies in Hollywood. It's a war picture, and a lot of war pictures have like these stories behind them. How they got
Well,
made,
yeah.
guys going out in the jungle. So it's kind of making fun of that too. It's really kind of a great script if you think about it. Like it's a very thoughtful script.
It's an amazing script.
Well,
These are scripts that I like.
well, that's what this. Well, this reminds me, but it came out during COVID on Netflix, and it had a bunch of action stars. The Bubble. Uh, if you guys saw it, because it's basically putting all these action stars in the hotel, and they're just going to film everything green screen, and it is something kind of in the style of the Fast and the Furious, or like if you will, Scorcher, and so they're getting this whole cast back together, and there was like a kid, and they grew up. And it's similar to Tropic Thunder in that you put all the main cast just in one location, and they go crazy, and you have like the drug people, and you have this and that, and the Bubble was kind of like that, and then it ends almost the same way, spoiler, in that the movie that ends up coming out is like either just a documentary on how bad the movie was and never got made, or it's a movie about the making of the movie that didn't work out. So it's clearly, I feel like the story wise, this has been done again, only minus the more satire heavy parts of this movie. If that makes sense. I don't know if that made sense.
No, it makes sense.
Okay. I'm glad.
So with that being said, let's go into final thoughts. And let's
Okay, let's do
start
it.
with you, Dino.
I like it. It's one that at some point I will revisit. It's probably there, like talking about satire. If things come out like that, I'll recommend this movie. And I guess I guess our professor hadn't watched the movie, so it is interesting to hear people that haven't. I just thought this movie was so big when it came out, but yeah. So I will recommend this movie to people. Clearly, it's a recommendation that has to have a little bit of a talking about, kind of like Blazing Saddles. Like, I don't want to just shock people left and right.
A
Just be
bit
a
of a
little bit
trigger
like,
warning.
huh? A trigger warning? There you go. That's how they should be called. Just trigger warnings.
Wait, isn't that what we call them now? Like what Chris said earlier, like this movie even says like, hey, it has blackface in it. So if that can be like emotionally triggering to you, maybe you should just be aware that you have to like brace yourself for that moment so that it's not jarring. There's going to be
I thought
nudity,
it
so
was,
if you got kids in the room, just
Yeah.
know.
isn't,
You know what I mean?
Yep.
isn't that just being woke, right? It's the woke.
It's not
Uh,
woke. It's the same as saying like extreme violence before a movie
no,
starts. Like
I know,
people
I
should
know, I
know.
know. Language. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would definitely kind of, let people know, like, hey, this is very high satire, and the blackface, and people with disability. But it's definitely should be recommended for satire, and on different levels of satire. That's the other thing. It hits so many levels, from Hollywood, from just like everything that now can maybe even kind of see right before social media really hit it off. But yeah, so I'll save this on my TiVo, and at some point I'll watch it again. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Dino. Let's go with Chris.
So for me, I think if you're gonna make this movie, it better be really good. It better be really clever. It better hit on its notes, because if it doesn't, this movie ruins some of these people's careers, people that are associated with the movie and franchises. It could have altered Hollywood in some ways. If this had gone bad and he had not done it well, and he didn't land the satire, it would have been rejected, and that could have gone really wrong for a lot of the people in the movie. I think it's an interesting movie. I had never seen it. I guess partially I thought it was weird that Robert Downey Jr. did that, and I did not know it was a satire. Maybe that's part of the reason I never really looked into it much. I just thought it was ridiculous, the idea. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought they did a really nice job, and they were trying to really show something. And again, I think the backlash is almost probably worse from Hollywood, what they got. Maybe they didn't get that, but I think that'd be more the worry, because those are the people they're working with all the time. I would recommend it to people. Again, I agree with you 100%. I would definitely with some warning, but I do feel like this movie, this is known for this, right? I mean, that's what, I don't know that I knew that there was going to be so much about people with disabilities, but I think Robert Downey Jr. character, that is the face of this movie. If you know what this movie is, ever I've heard of it, that's the main thing that you would know. Yeah, so that's my final thought.
Yeah, I remember one of the movie posters just being him, like on the side of like a city bus. Like, what
Wow.
are you showing me?
It was what? It was what?
It was just him, just Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, just him driving by in blackface on a city bus. Like, what is this movie?
His ugly crime also, like snot ugly crime, is just, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's funny to me, though. Those jokes, all those actor jokes.
Go ahead,
So
Jay.
I will say that this movie hits on a lot of different things. It's very funny in the way it's got that very broad Mel Brooksian feelings that like a modern day Blazing Saddles kind of. It is scathing satire. It's making fun of itself. It's making fun of other people in the movie, I think. It's really like punching a hole at society and Hollywood and celebrity and just the system as a whole. And like how we respond to stuff and what's being sold to us. And So yeah, the movie it's pretty good, man. It's pretty timely. It fits right into a nice pocket in time in Hollywood history, I think. It made me want to watch another Ben Stiller movie. Honestly, like I don't know if Ben Stiller is he still making movies? Did he direct something recently?
Well,
Separate.
Severance. It's a Apple TV show.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that Ben Stiller is still working in Hollywood, and I would love to see him do another broad comedy. Like I would like to see what he thinks is silly now. You know, I think there's room for him to do some more work if he so wished. I mean, for me, for like my taste, I would watch another Ben Stiller comedy. Yeah, that's I would recommend this movie to a lot of people with the warnings, of course. You know, considering I would be considerate of who I'm offering it to, but most comedy fans, I would. You know, people who enjoy comedy. Um, and yeah, it's funny. It's a little bit of an action drama comedy, dark comedy at times. It's a fun movie, man. And yeah, I would revisit this thing again because just because like the comedy is executed so well. Like this movie is so well aware of what it is, and that's like a really strong, powerful tool. So that's just really a testament to like Ben Stiller's executing his vision in this thing because he did, and I'm sure, like you said, there's lots of space for this thing to like go bad. So it's like he really executed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. Definitely check out. So recently, Adam Sandler got the Mark Twain Award,
Oh yeah,
and Ben Stiller was one of the speakers,
nice.
and he threw some really nice jokes. Like he did a little bit of stand up, you may say. Uh,
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out.
yeah.
The
So
one final thing that I just noticed. Apparently, there's a 30-minute mockumentary, Tropic Thunder: Reign of Madness, that came out. I guess that's part of the DVD extras. It's 30 minutes, and I
Yeah.
think it's making fun of that Apocalypse Now documentary also of like there's a famous documentary about Apocalypse Now.
I've
So
seen it.
yeah,
is that on YouTube?
I don't know. I think it was probably DVD extra, but I'll have to look it up.
I'll definitely check that out. Okay, so my final thought. Uh, so yeah, I think it's very different, like watching it from the first time to now, because the first time I was very young, very young when I watched this movie. So there were certain things I wasn't even aware because again, English is actually my second language. So there were things that
Yeah.
I didn't understand necessarily, but now watching it as a grown up and now being woke, quote unquote, I still enjoy this movie. I think it holds up. I think it gets justified appropriately what it wants to do. The movie is not making fun of the facts; it's making fun of the industry as a whole. And yeah, I think is a really solid movie. Uh, I did not expect such a huge budget, but you can tell by all the explosions and all the things that and the people they got that they spend a pretty penny making this thing. But this is like this type of comedy, specifically more in the script than anything, like the dialogue and things like that. I those are the type of things that I grew up on and I really enjoyed, and I wish they bring stuff like that back because I haven't seen a comedy quite like that recently, uh, as of late. Like it's been a few years since I've seen like things like that. So thumbs up. I would definitely recommend it to other people, especially that are a little bit more grown, and so they, even have an idea of who these actors are. Because it's surprising how little, younger people know about many actors. especially if they never seen a show or whatever, or like someone, even Robert Downey Jr. Someone might just know him by Iron Man. They might not even know him by his actual name. Because I remember one time talking to kids, and I said, "Oh, I've worked with Kevin Hart," and they were like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "He's like in everything." And then I talked about YouTubers, and they know all of them. So it's crazy how everything has been changing. But even though things been changing, this movie still remains strong in my eyes, and I'll give it 2 thumbs up. So that is my final thought.
Very cool. Very cool. But I did have one more question for you, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you got for us next week?
Next week, I don't know why you asked me. I just went. What am I, a dictator? I'm going again, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm kidding. It is Dino's turn.
What? So I've been wanting. I don't know if I've ever seen this film, but I've seen
Bardo
other
2.
of his. What'd you say?
Bardo 2.
Yeah. But it's close. It's up there. Um, yeah, I've seen some of his other films, but I've seen a lot of documentaries about him, and I've always wanted to see this film. It is dun, 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 Harold Lloyd. Already, Safety Last. There we go. I was gonna say Safety First, but it's Safety Last. So this is a classic. It's been redone a bunch of different times. The stunts that he's done has been redone over and over again. So yeah, I want to watch the movie. It's a classic. He was a legend. Yeah, even in that stuff, he had blown off some fingers with a stunt for a photo shoot, and so in this movie, he already has like a prosthetic glove to yeah. So it'll be interesting watching it. That's it.
Cool. Safety last.
Safety last for next week. So for El Dondino, El Professor, Jason Echoes, me, Steve West TV. We'll catch you next week. Bye bye.